Well, I tried going outside, but my hay fever kicked up, so I decided to switch green grass with green pixels, and not quite pixels because this is Colossus, but we are inside the National Museum of Computing. So let's talk and walk and do a fun combination of the both. So Paul, if you follow me, you will find everyone's favourite thing. Ooh, quick note, sorry for touching this, by the way. This is a reel of tape, which is what old-timey computers, to all of you young people, I say young, I'm 18. How they worked is they'd write to 5-bit wide. Is there one with all 5? There isn't, but you can kind of make it out. So it would write straight to tape instead of a digital screen as you look at. And if we expand this, you can see this thing goes on forever. And I'm really sorry because someone's going to have to roll this back up again. But hey. This goes on for meters upon meters of just tape, and that is how you would record your information. And fun fact, this being a roll of paper tape, I'm just going to put this back before I ruin it. It's actually how a lot of archiving is still done. It's slow, but it's reliable. It's paper tape, and unless it gets burnt in a fire, it's still going to be paper tape down the line. So if we look at this, it's worth noting that Colossus is the entire room. It's not just like a small computer that you can stick on a desk. This is in the center of the room, and this would take up an entire room because of the sheer size of it. So you'd have multiple operators. It wouldn't be sort of one person sitting at a keyboard being like, oh look, things are happening. You have far too much going on for that. So you have sort of here, which is all the technical side, and then we have here, which you can see the meters upon meters of tape. So this is the tape readery bit, and you can see that actually there's also the hole punch here. So what would happen is that it would be bound by the physical speed as it's outputting to a physical medium. It's not like a hard drive where they run at hundreds of megabytes a second and you just write at that. It's the speed of actual paper being actually cut, meaning it's limited to 30 miles an hour, which you can't really equate to digital speed because digital speed doesn't work in real life. So roughly the space of, what, four things wide? You can fit, so 20 bits as such, and then you have 32 gigabytes on a micro SD card. Looking around this side, you think, oh, this is the boring side, it's just a bunch of vacuum tubes, what do they do? Well, that's a good question. You see, with roughly 2,500 vacuum tubes, you can do so many fun things, like make a television, or, well, an old-timey television. I keep calling things old-timey, I'm probably insulting someone, sorry if you're watching. So with these, they function effectively, I mean this is very simplistic, but they effectively function like transistors in a traditional CPU, but they're obviously significantly larger, get hotter, not as great because of those reasons, but in essence they are transistors, and there are 2,500 of them here. Whereas if you think that's a large number, right, so this computer takes up a huge room, great, but if you look at a CPU like on the Raspberry Pi, which Tom will now throw at me, that wasn't a throw, but okay. If we look at this, we're keeping that in. If we look at this is a Raspberry Pi in case, wacky fun stuff I know. I'm probably going to break something, but oh well, it's a Raspberry Pi, not exactly expensive. Not quite worth as much as this thing. So if we look at a Raspberry Pi, and if you zoom into that Broadcom chip, so that chip, so we have 2,500 vacuum tubes here. That chip contains hundreds of millions of transistors. It was the first programmable computer ever made, if I'm remembering the terminology correctly. It depends on how you determine a computer, because theoretically you can count calculators as computers and blah blah blah. But when you look at it, this is the first programmable computer, and it has no memory like a traditional computer would, right? You buy a computer and it has 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 500 terabyte billion jillion hard drive. But this has no storage and no memory. So how do you load different programs if it's programmable? Well, you go in and you physically change the switches. So that someone somewhere had a list of too many programs. I mean, they're all decoding related, obviously. So this, as you'd expect, isn't an original Colossus. There were 10 of them that were ever made, and they're very hard to preserve due to the fact that they're, you know, a full room. So this was remade over the course of 14 years? 14 years. And it is fully functional, which is an achievement in itself. So unfortunately, I feel like I probably won't be allowed to touch it, but you know, it's great and all. It took 14 years for a team of 20 people to fully rebuild this, which included sourcing original parts, because it's not like building a normal piece where you go, oh, I want that CPU and that hard drive. You had to find the exact parts, and I imagine outside of this room there are very few of any of these components for you to find. So it wouldn't quite be Colossus if we didn't sort of remember that there are people who rebuilt this, right? So right over here there's a sign, I think I'm pointing at it more or less. Good. There's a sign which has the rebuild team as led by Tony Sale, featuring Bob Alexander, Charles Coulter, I'm going to try to not screw up these names, I promise. Rob Dixon, Ken Day, Phil Hayes, who is actually off camera and making sure I'm factually accurate. Thank you, Phil. Peter Merriman, John Peffer, David Stanley, and John Wetter. Perfect. I can names. So rebuilding Colossus is a colossal achievement, obviously. The Duke of Kent actually awarded a plaque that Tom, who is slightly off camera, is kindly recording for us right now. So you may be wondering, where is Colossus held? Well, it's here, actually, in this building, which is where we just were, in Milton Keynes.
£3 for adults, £2 for children. Fun day out, something to do that's different. Find out a bit of history.
How we won the war.
Machine on how we won the war, basically.
Check out the previous video up there, and check out a random unselected video up there, and hit all the like, shares and comments, and yeah, there's a load of buttons around down there that you can hit as well.
Anyway guys, see you next time.
That is actually probably the best intro I've ever, outro I've ever done, because I am terrible with outros.
So computers come in all sizes, shapes and forms. We have my smartwatch right here, which is the smallest, right? We also have my phone, which is average size. You know, you take those everywhere, very fun. We also have, let's put these down over here. And then you also have Microsoft Surface, right? Or if you're at home, a full PC. It has a screen, a keyboard, up to 64 gigabytes of RAM, multiple terabytes worth of hard drive. All great fun. But what this is Colossus. This is the world's first programmable digital computer, and it was used to win a war, basically. And I don't care what you do on your computer, playing Call of Duty and Battlefield and whatever, this is way cooler.